Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Saturday Morning Comic Review. I am your host, Ellen Wallace. Today, we got a great issue for you guys. Before we jump into the reviews, which of course we'll talk through current week's polls, 10 reviewed books, next week polls, just want to talk real quick about Fantastic Four. So didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but the feedback seems to be, I guess, kind of so-so. Some things I'm seeing are like really great way to start a new phase one. Others are saying like it's just kind of boring. I'd be interested to see when I go ahead and watch it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see this in theaters like I was able to for Superman, but for both being like, obviously Superman is straight up, reset, reboot of the DC universe, from the movie perspective. And then the Fantastic Four is just going to be the next phase on the Marvel universe. Both are kind of in a similar setting of like being the first movie. And it seems like Superman is just doing much better kind of pound for pound. But keep in mind too, right, Superman is like obviously going to have much bigger name than Fantastic Four for another thing. So just kind of bear that in mind. But then, Marvel is back behind Disney. Obviously, we got the cachet of all the other Marvel movies, but Marvel's been so-so as of late. So do people feel burned? I don't know. Tough to say. But that's just what I'm kind of hearing out there. If you guys watched it, you have thoughts on it, opinions on it, feel free to comment on it. I do want to for sure see it when it comes to... I guess Disney Plus would be the platform of choice. And then on top of that, on the news segment too, San Diego Comic-Con obviously took place in the previous weekend. And for me, I didn't see like a lot of like earth-shattering news. And that could be me just being completely ignorant and not keeping my ear close to the ground. I just get so focused in on just reviewing the books themselves. When I went into the shop this week just to pick up my books, we really didn't mention anything on San Diego Comic-Con. So I don't know. I feel like maybe I just missed something. But today's podcast is not going to be focused on that. As you guys well know, it is mostly just focused on the reviews. So if you're looking for news, fortunately, it's just not really the outlet. But I think it'd be silly of me to have a comic book podcast and not mention like the biggest fan event that we have of the year, which is San Diego Comic-Con, right? So I do hope to get to one of them one of these days. Maybe New York would probably make the most sense, as I got family up in the New York, New Jersey area. So maybe one of these days. But until then, we will be reviewing our books as always. So let's go ahead and jump into the polls for this week. And for the polls, those are the previous weeks. I only had 7, remember, very small week in comparison to what I usually get. But before we do that, of course, I always like to go through the top 5 picks thus far for the week. So you can see them up on your screen, and then, of course, I'll read them out for the audio listeners. So we have Ultimate Spider-Man 19, which I have, Assorted Crisis Events number 5, and I was talking to the comic book shop manager on this one, and he's like, this is one of the best independent books going, and every single time this book comes out, I feel like it's on this top 5 list. So I think we're going to have to pick it up when it comes out on trade, because it's just been so consistently high scored. But I don't have it. Then we have the Ultimates 14, which I do have, Nightwing 25, the annual, and then Justice League Dark Tomorrow special. So 2 of those, kind of just being one-shots, but then the other 2, of course, being from the Ultimate Universe, and then we have Assorted Crisis. So I just have the 2, which is totally and completely fine. We'll see where they all rank for me. But with that, let's go into the polls for this week. Everything you see here is consistent with what I had from last week, so no changes there, which is good. For the audio folks, it's probably easiest if I could just call out what is actually going to be on the Omega, which I believe it is only one of these books, if I'm looking at them really quickly. So it's just Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, issue number 8, which is the first one on this poll list, as it's typically in alphabetical order. So that's the only one that's going to be on the Omega and not featured today. But on top of that, we had The Incredible Hulk 27, Medieval Spawn 4, Spider-Man versus the Sinister 16, Star Wars The High Republic, the finale, and then Ultimate Spider-Man, and then The Ultimates number 14. So that's it for the polls. I mean, only 7, which is very small for me. I like to be in that 12-ish range. If it's 10, that's fine. If it's 15, that's fine. But I feel like that's probably kind of the sweet spot. Obviously, there have been plenty of weeks that have been much higher, but this is the lowest I've seen in God knows how long, which is good. So a nice little break on the wallet, which is much needed. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the reviews for this week. And so, like I mentioned, 10 books, 7 of which are for the pulls for this week. You can see the first one I have up here is Ultimate Spider-Man number 19. But before we jump into that, just want to give everyone a warning. If you've been listening for a while, you already know, but it's important to just kind of recap. I do spoil the heck out of all of these books. So if you are not interested in spoilers, this is just not going to be the podcast for you. But I try to catch you up on the story. I'll give you a review of the story thus far. We'll rank it and see where my ranking compares to the ranking on League, and then whether or not this is a good issue to actually jump into. So that's kind of the format, and we'll go for these 10 books in this particular order. So first, like I mentioned, Ultimate Spider-Man number 19. Then we have Spider-Man versus the Sinister 16, number 1, and that's basically, they had a whole bunch of crossover series within Marvel, all Marvel characters, but characters that have never teamed up really before in the past. That's the last one of this. I think they had Ghost Rider and Galactus in one, Captain America and Volstagg in another, like just weird pairings. Then we have the Ultimates number 14, Medieval Spawn number 4, which is a conclusion, The Incredible Hulk 27, Star Wars The High Republic, the finale, and surprise, surprise, that's a conclusion as well. Uncanny X-Men number 9, Miles Morales Spider-Man 21, X-Men number 10, and then Local Man. And so starting with when I said Uncanny X-Men and those last 4, those are all backlog books that we have on there. But those will be the 10 books, and then we'll review them in order. And then after I do like the little review for the video folks, I show off the art a little bit too, so you can get a flavor of what that is if you want to, go ahead and pick it up at your local comic book shop or find it somewhere online. Just need to grab a sip of coffee here. Alrighty, so first up here is going to be Ultimate Spider-Man number 19. Very excellent book. I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.4, so highly rated book, and I think rightfully so. So this book picks up immediately where we left off, where Richard, who's Peter Parker's son, was captured by this universe's Sinister Six, and looking like he's going to be in a bad spot here. And he was basically betrayed by his pseudo-girlfriend, which is Catwoman, but in this case, like, I guess kind of Catgirl, not Catwoman, that is a DC character, Black Cat. But Black Cat in this universe is actually a teenager, whereas, obviously in some of the other books, much older. But the actual Black Cat was her father. Father couldn't end up doing it anymore, so she kind of picked up the mantle, tricked Richard into falling into this trap. But remember, for the Ultimate Universe, right, we have this Maker who's out there. He's been locked away, sealed away, I think, for 2 years. But he's going to come back. They're trying to figure out a way to stop him. So Tony Stark, he basically came up with a way, and all the superpowers were stripped away from this universe. Very important detail. So Tony found a way of trying to find the people that should be having these powers and sending them out. And we have slight variations throughout of who gets the power. Maybe their name's a little bit different. The origin story is a little different. Maybe they get the powers a little later in life. For Peter Parker, it is later in life. He has kids. He's married to MJ. And our Green Goblin in this is Harry, and Mysterio is also Gwen Stacy. Harry is married to Gwen. So a whole bunch happening in this, if this is literally your first time getting into Ultimate Spider-Man. But like I mentioned, Richard is captured. He's in the room. We got Kingpin. We have Black Cat. We have, I think Mole Man might actually be in there. Mr. Negative, the whole lot. All the Sinister Six. And Richard's like, shit, I don't know what to do. But he's wearing the symbiote suit. The symbiote suit's like, okay, I got your back. I can handle this if you want me to. It's like, yes, I don't know what to do. It's like, all right, close your eyes and don't open them until I tell you. And then the symbiote becomes like straight up like the most heinous, disgusting looking Venom you've ever seen in his life, just attacking out and lashing out as much as possible in order to get Richard away from there. So that all takes place in probably the first 25% of the book. Then the middle portion is about the Sinister Six regrouping, and they're trying to figure out, well, where's Kraven in all this? Kraven has died a while back, but they're trying to keep that under wraps, and specifically Mole Man. So Mole Man is like part of the council, but he's actually kind of working for Peter and for Harry and for Gwen and feeding all this information back. So he's working that side of it, but then they're not aware of it, Kingpin and all the rest of them. but they're not suspicious yet either. And Mole Man's like, hey, you just got to be careful, because at some point they're going to figure out your guys' identities and they're going to go after you. So if you're figuring out something, you better, strike now. And then Peter asks, like, Mole Man, well, if that's the case, why are you with us? He's like, I've been looking to get a way out, and I finally feel like you guys are the powers that have an opportunity to do so. So he has some faith in them. Then we flash forward to MJ and Peter, and they see Richard, that he's come back. They ground him, and then he's actually come back again from sneaking out again to meet up with Black Cat, and scold him, ground him again. And then MJ, you just get like a character development moment from her, very upset and frightened, and like doesn't know how to handle this, and said it's already been hard enough, Peter, with you having these powers and these abilities, and I feel like I've been holding down the fort. Now Richard has a suit, and I thought this would be a cool thing for you guys, but he's in danger. Peter's trying to reassure him, like, he's actually safer with the suit on, if anything. But MJ's like, okay, but like still, like, you have to just tell me everything now. Stop omitting certain facts and things to try to protect me. Just tell me everything. And that's basically the cliffhanger that we're left off on. So it's all about that first 25%, though. An incredible portion of the book. So let's go ahead and show that off. Remember, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. So make sure the camera's good as far as the glare. So this is Richard and Black Cat basically meeting up. What it's kind of goes between two different timelines here, but it's a little bit in the future and a little bit in the past. But check that out there with like, holy shit, where he turns into Venom here. Looks freaking awesome. You definitely want to tune in for the video for this one. But he just starts attacking and going like crazy and turns into like an absolute monster. And that's how he's basically able to get away. So here's where you have the Sinister Six basically trying to regroup here and everything. And then it's revealed that, Green Goblin and Mysterio are getting all the information as well. Here's where Mole Man comes into play, and it's revealed, why he's actually helping them out and everything. And then the whole MJ portion where she's like, all right, enough of this crap, Peter. You got to start telling me everything. So, great book there. It's been excellent thus far. Probably the best one that's going on the Ultimate side. Certainly when you compare it to X-Men and Black Panther. I think the Ultimates is also really, really good. Is this the place to jump in? I don't think you need too much of the other one, so I actually think you'd be fine to jump in here. I think you'd be okay. It's not the best place, it's not the worst place, but it doesn't feel like, for this story, what they tell in 19, like you need previous stuff. So I think you'd actually be okay if you wanted to jump into it. So that's Ultimate Spider-Man number 19. I gave it a 4.5. League gave it a 4.4. Then next up here is Spider-Man versus the Sinister 16. It's a number 1, but basically it is just a one-shot. So again, this is the final of those buddy matchups with people in the Marvel Universe that don't typically team up before. I wasn't sure what this one's going to be about. And the comic book manager is like, oh, this one's so awesome. You're going to love this one. It's incredible. And it's like, I had no idea that this is what it was going to be about, but it's such a crazy story. And man, as I was reading through it, I was like, this thing is freaking wild. Like, what a narrative. So basically, we got Peter, we got MJ. They're going out to dinner in this crazy, crazy fancy restaurant in New York City. 5-star, Michelin star restaurant and everything that they can't get into. Reservations are booked out months in advance. And somehow they were able to get in. And Peter's basically like, yeah, well, I'm supposed to actually meet up with Tony Stark. Then I decided to cancel on him so I could get a loophole, and basically it could just be a dinner for 2. But very quickly, it does not become a dinner for 2. Then Thor and She-Hulk show up. And they seem like they're like maybe on a date, maybe showing up as friends, but they're there. And then slowly but surely, a whole bunch of people just start showing up. So then it's Doc Ock shows up. And he stares down at Peter. Peter stares down at him. And he's like, you need to talk right now. Takes him, pulls him into an alleyway, and they're like both arguing with each other like, you cannot screw up this night for me. For me, I'm just a patron of going here to dinner. It's like, it doesn't matter. We got to put everything aside. Tonight needs to be absolutely perfect, right? And they're both like just arguing about this. And then so sure enough, more heroes and more villains just keep piling in. People from the Avengers, from the X-Men, you name it. They're all piling in, heroes and villains, all at this restaurant, one by one by one. And then Eddie Brock shows up, and then Peter does the same thing, pulls Eddie outside. It's like, you can't screw this up. Why are you even here? You don't even have good taste. You don't even know what these French foods are. It's hilarious. Like, who would have thought of this idea? And you come to find out that the owner of the restaurant is plotting this with, I guess, the head, maitre d' or waitress or whatever. And what he's trying to do is his business is going like under, and he wanted to somehow create a way where all of these heroes come together. And then since they can't settle their differences out in the battlefield, maybe they can do it under, this roof with incredible food, through a meal. And at first it seems like it's in good intentions, but then you clearly find out is that the business was failing, and he's hoping that this all turns into like an enormous disaster, and he can get all the insurance money, basically. So setting up a huge fraud scam. But at first it starts to work out pretty well. Everyone is like having their own meals, everything's fine, no one's like arguing with anyone or making any snide remarks or looking at anyone. But then it gets to a point where a waiter is trying to serve like an extra glass of red wine, and he goes to pour it and he spills it, of course, and it lands on Kingpin. It's like, oh boy, here we go, right? But nope, Doctor Strange gets up like a mature adult and just does like a little hand wave spell thing, and then the wine goes, reverses back in time and then is back on the glass, and everyone cheers and is happy. So it's like, wow, this may actually work in the end. But then, of course, it's Eddie Brock eating, and he's eating all loud, and he starts like getting food. I can't remember who he gets it on, but he gets it on to someone. And then just from then on, then it's just the fight's on. It's mixed between a food fight and an actual fight. All the heroes are going at it. The restaurant is completely destroyed and leveled. Of course, the insurance is like, the whole thing is on the line of like calling and trying to get the money and the estimate, this, that, and the other. But She-Hulk is there. It turns out She-Hulk actually has another ability. She can hear really, really well, and especially for that restaurant. And she was one of the first ones there before the fighting happened. So she heard the whole conversation. It's like, and as an officer of the law, I'm gonna have to report this. Like, there's no way you guys are gonna get away with this fraud scheme. The head waitress is like, I'm sorry. It was all his idea, and so he's gonna get in trouble for it, I guess, in the end. And so Peter and MJ then are up on the roof. They're having like a slice, or they went to get like a corner hot dog or something like that, and basically saying like, hey, it was fun. It was worth a try. It was cool that it worked for a minute, but I guess we just kind of are who we are in the end. So really fun, incredible story, hilarious story. And I was like, man, this is like, I love when comics do stuff like this, just like flip the narrative on its head. Let's have a little fun and a little one shot as well. So it's just good, hilarious fun, well written. And then the little asides, like in the back as well, like arguing, just trying not to screw up the super nice fancy dinner. So here you have like Loki shows up, and then you got like Luke Cage shows up, Maria Hill, Squirrel Girl, Black Bolt, Eddie Brock. It's like, you name it, they're there. Mystique, Destiny, Leader. It's like the whole thing. And then here's like the wine scene that takes place. Doctor Strange, he's able to reverse it. Everyone's all happy about it. And then here's the part with Eddie Brock. I think that's the Mad Hatter is who he gets it on. And then that's suddenly where things start to go and get a little crazy here, right? And here's where you have the scene of the big old fight that takes place in the restaurant. And then, they finally break it all up, but it was all the fraud piece. And then, basically the New York scene that you get here of, things are going to be what it's going to be. Excellent book. It's a one-off, so obviously just jump on and go and get it. You don't need any of the other ones. It's just a fun, hilarious book, and I'm so glad that I got it. Next up here is the Ultimate number 14. And for Spider-Man versus the Sinister 16, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.3. So then the Ultimates number 14, I gave that also a 4.5, and Lee gave it a 4.2. Awesome story that we have here. So same setup here as Ultimate Spider-Man as far as the universe, but the Ultimates are basically the Avengers, if you will. Team's all set, and now they're kind of going off and doing their own thing, and they're trying to become like, I think the Avengers 3.0 is like what they're trying to be, whatever this version is, or the Ultimates 3.0 anyways, and do their own version of good. And so this issue mostly focuses on Hawkeye and Captain America. So Hawkeye and Cap, they're going after a whole bunch of different companies, research labs, pipelines, basically big old conglomerate Fortune 500 companies that are actually doing a lot of bad for the world, even though they claim that they're doing a bunch of good. And then as they're going and about to take over this pipeline, it then goes to a scene where we have like a whole bunch of like super rich people in some crazy boardroom. And the guy like starts off as like, so happy to be here. Like this room represents 23% of like the world's wealth, right? So it's like one of those. So imagine you got like Elon, you got Bezos, you have, head of Google, head of Microsoft, like all of them in a room, basically, the Mag 7. And basically he's like, yeah, my business has been getting hurt. Your business has been getting hurt. Your business has been getting hurt, all from the Ultimates, right? We got to take these guys out. And if we pool our resources together, we're going to pay a pretty penny, but we'll be able to get this thorn out of our side and then get back to like business as usual. So they all agree and all decide on it. And so the main guy says like, okay, I've heard of someone who can help out. And it's Emma Frost who he recruits. So obviously she's a telepath. She comes in, says, yes, we have this whole school. We're going to make sure that we get this completely taken care of. And this school is full, I guess, of academy members. You would assume it has something to do with the mansion for the X-Men. But it's not. It's like a totally different thing. And two of her students are freaking Quicksilver and Wanda, so the Scarlet Witch. So both of them show up onto the pipeline site where Hawkeye and Cap are fighting. And then Cap and Hawkeye are getting their ass kicked for a good amount of time until basically Cap comes up with the idea. They're on a pipeline. Let's get some oil onto Quicksilver. And because he's speeding around, he's going so fast, the heat is going to heat up the oil. But just like the friction from the suit would like repel and cool automatically, otherwise he wouldn't be able to wear the suit. It's like, okay, the fire is not going to hurt. I was like, okay, that's actually smart storytelling there. But if he's on fire, then you can't breathe because of the smoke, and then the fire is also going to then consume the oxygen that's in his lungs. It's like, that's also smart story, like actually working into the science fiction of like from a chemistry perspective, that I'd imagine that's how that would go too. So that neutralizes him. And then Wanda gets neutralized as well. I think she's like basically distracted, and Hawkeye was able to hit her with a bolt that knocked her out. So they're down, but they're not completely out. Then we go back to the boardroom. Emma Frost and those like 6 super rich people. Emma then decides to kill all of them. And the reason she does that is, yes, you had all these rich people, but there was another one that wasn't there. And he's called DaCosta. And apparently they all have this fear/respect for DaCosta, but he's like just kind of this vague person. But it turns out Emma's actually working for DaCosta. And so they decided to kill, let's say it was 6 people, 5 of the 6 people, but they kept 1. And then the one person, she's like, well, why did you decide to keep me? It's like, well, all of them wanted to kill DaCosta, but the way that they wanted to kill him was like pretty simple, conventional ways, like nothing that was interesting. You wanted to kill DaCosta, but the way you wanted to do it was extremely creative, and so we could use you in your creativity moving forward. Like, how dark and twisted and effed up is that? And that's basically the cliffhanger of like, now this new player is on the field with Emma Frost, and like, what is this all going to lead to? It's a pretty cool book. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I'm loving the Ultimates. Between the two of Ultimate Spider-Man and the Ultimates, I think I lean more towards the Ultimates. And that being said, this is my comic of the week. Really, really good stuff. So even though League voted it as number 3, it is number 1 in my heart, I would say. So with that, let's go ahead and look at some of the artwork here. And the artwork, I think, is pretty solid. Now, at first I saw this text, I was like, dear Lord, that is a lot of text. But it slows down after that, thank goodness. And some, see, like, look at that. That's like nothing. Just mostly art and action that you have right there. Some Ultimate books I feel like are pretty heavy on the text, and then others are not so much. Like the one where we had America Chavez, that one was pretty heavy. But some of the other ones are like not so much. And then you get past it, and it's like, yeah, then this is like not bad at all. But yeah, the action was good. The story is good. And the other thing I should say too is Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are now prisoners of the Ultimates as well. And they're dubbed to be like kids or teenagers in this. So I wonder if they'll try to convince them to be on their side moving forward, would be my guess, which seems cool. So yeah. That's the Ultimates number 14. Again, I gave it a 4.5, and League gave it a 4.2. Next up here is Medieval Spawn number 4, and this is from Image. I gave it a 3.5, and Lee gave it a 3.7. So this is the conclusion to this series, just a 4-parter, which is fine. I was thinking of actually dropping this one, especially in my era of, trying to pull things back a little bit from a number of pulls, but I was like, okay, there's only 4, and if I were to cut this off now, no matter what, I get 3, might as well just get the 4th. But it lands as well as I thought it would, which is not super great. But the story here is in a medieval setting. We're going after this warlock, the Hellspawn in particular, that set off this blight in this town, let this one kid, Richard, his family completely wiped out. So Richard wants revenge. They go into the woods. They can't find him. Then Spawn's like, okay, I think I know either a warlock or a wizard that can help us. They go and they seek him out. They find him. And now at this point, there's this other interest body army group that wants to go after the Hellspawn. And they've arrived on scene, and now they're fighting as well. Meanwhile, the warlock, who's trying to figure out where this blight person is, was distracted in summoning the spell and unintentionally summoned like this huge crazy demon person. So there's this demon on one side, Spawn with the warlock, and Richard on the other, and then on the third side, or like towards the tail end, is this army, and they're all about to fight one another. So we start in this book. The warlock puts up this big flame shield around them that's able to protect. The big demon is able to possess people, so he possesses one of the stronger warriors on the army side, and they just start fighting. And Richard's just a boy here, so Richard is like taunted by this demon, and so he leaves the safety of the fire circle, and when he leaves, he starts fighting, and the Hellspawn, he's like, crap, I'm like in between the warlock and Richard. Richard is like, the Hellspawn's like charge, if you will, so he feels like he needs to do something, but the warlock's like, I cannot break my concentration on the spell, like you have to stay here, and if you go out there, you could also get possessed as well. And so Richard's out there fighting, but it's actually someone else in the army that goes and tries to help and support Richard as well, but then that guy gets possessed as well, and it's like, oh damn, now it's like not looking good at all. So then Spawn leaves the circle, and he fights off a couple of guys, but then he gets possessed too. He's like, when you get possessed, basically, you're out cold, and then literally the next instant, suddenly, you wake up and you just learn whatever happened in the aftermath. So apparently the whole army was decimated except for a couple people. The demon's totally and completely gone, and then the warlock is still there. But the whole twist on this is Spawn never took off his helmet, and he actually is like, he's hellborn, so he kind of looks as though he's like a possessed person. And I guess when he was possessed, his helmet came off, and Richard saw that. So he's basically was fighting alongside someone who he thought was his enemy the whole time. So when Spawn comes to and he sees that and he sees Richard and he's like, oh, yeah, Richard, are you okay? Richard's like, stay the hell away from me. I don't want anything to do with you. And he goes to like fight him. And Spawn's like, no, stop. I should have told you sooner about all of this. And then, this wouldn't be this huge shock of who I actually am. But I'm different. I'm not like, but Richard just will not leave. And the last couple guys of the army, they kind of support him too. And so as they're fighting, they have like this one secret weapon screaming lady. She screams, they're in this tunnel, it starts caving in. Richard and the rest of them flee, so it's just the warlock and Spawn, and the warlock like summons like this spell to protect them from everything crumbling in on them, and then they're trapped there they really have no idea until suddenly they're able to finagle their way out, and then Spawn's basically like, yeah, I never really saw Richard again until later down the line when we became mortal enemies, teasing whatever next series is that they go ahead and do. So that's it. That's basically the story. So poor Richard, man, and Spawn's like heartbroken of like, shit, I should have done X, Y, and Z, and like hindsight and so on and so forth. But it's just kind of like an okay book in the end. I wouldn't really recommend it. It's just a 4-parter, but even still, it's just art so-so, the story so-so. You're not missing anything here. So with that, let's go through the book real quick. And obviously not the one to jump into at number 4. Oh, and sorry, I don't think I said whether or not it'd be good to jump into the Ultimates. You'd actually be fine if you jumped into that one, just FYI. You'd be totally fine if you did that. But anyways, back to this one, back to Medieval Spawn. You can see the artwork here is pretty good, and the artwork has been good. It's classic Spawn. If you've seen and read any of those comics before, it's the exact same art style that you would expect there. So it's like high saturation on a lot of the colors, but it's pretty simplistic as far as its detail is concerned. They tend to be $1 less, although I don't think that this book was actually $1 less here. But this was a very action-heavy book. And what I like about this is it has a little bit of like the medieval language, but it doesn't like lean into it too heavily. So it's, an easy, quick read as well. So anyways, that's Medieval Spawn number 4. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 3.7. And then next up here is The Incredible Hulk number 27. Now this is a dark, twisted book. I'm not even going to lie. So I gave this a 4. Lee gave it a 4.3. This book was pretty messed up. It's a good point to jump in on because it kind of is a break in between like what's actually happening, so kind of like a filler issue. But basically Hulk is in his feelings. Bruce Banner is like trapped away somewhere within Hulk, and he's trying to prove to himself that he's not a monster, is the whole thing. So Hulk goes way off in the woods. He runs into a kid, and the kid happens to be out there with his family. His family is like staying in some sort of bus. And at first, Hulk doesn't think anything about it, but then you start to realize his dad is like a really bad dude who's like the person here on the cover. So he does some sort of robbing and burglary for a living. And it gets to the point where he seems like he's going to get caught, and his dad's like a total asshole to the son, to the family, abusive, just all the terrible stereotypical things. And as he's found out on this latest job, he's like, we got to pack up, we got to go. Got to pack up and go. And Hulk can overhear the mom saying, no, Petey, which is the kid, he's sick. And they're like, forget Petey. And then it's kind of weird how they do it, but basically I guess they allude to that they took Petey, and for whatever reason, because he was sick and didn't want to take him with him, they were going to abandon him. And what they decided to do is bury Petey alive under a tree. The most screwed up and effed up thing I've ever heard in my life. And so the mom, who's like just going along with this for the most part, she's like, I'm not going to leave Petey. Like, that's where I decide to draw the line. I'm not leaving Petey. So the dad just goes and drives off. And of course, Hulk sees all this and is like, F that. And so he runs after the guy. And it's like a pretty wild scene where he's driving this bus, and then Hulk just shows up and like smashes the hell out of it. And then gets to the point where I'm pretty sure he kills this guy, and rather than turning him in. So it's like, are you a monster? Are you a hero? I don't really know. But turns out Petey is actually okay, thank goodness. So he saved the kid. But it was like a dark and twisted book of like, wow, the Hulk finding himself in the most ridiculous circumstances ever. So that's the story. And it doesn't really set up anything else. It like kind of is just like a filler one shot within the universe. So anyways, here's the artwork on it. Now this is the point where the art looks really different, and like Hulk looks super different here, as you can see. But as I went through the book, I was like, as I was reminded, and for whatever reason, it wasn't as bad moving forward. So I was like, okay, not the worst thing in the world, and not going to continue to make comments on it. But that's Petey, and this is like the tree that they allude to. And he's like afraid of this tree, so I thought it had something to do with it, like something else earlier on happened, but that wasn't really the case. So here's like the arguing out there of like that they got to go, and Hulk looks, and he sees an arm here, and that's Petey. And then so he confronts the mom. She's like, it wasn't me, I swear it was him, I was never going to leave, we'll go to my grandparents. And so this is the guy driving off. There's a bus, and Hulk just literally smashing the hell out of the bus. And yeah, there he goes, and he smashes, and like, you had to have killed him, right? Claiming that he's not a monster, but I'm pretty sure he absolutely destroyed that guy. And so we have afterwards with the cops and like some sort of investigation, Hulk just like wrapping things up with Petey as this kid goes off, and Hulk like trying to figure out what's this whole crazy thing we call life all about. So it's Incredible Hulk. Much better book than the previous one, and a perfect place to jump in. But yeah, I just gave it a 4, not a 4.5. I was just like solid 4, maybe a little bit towards a 3.5, because I kept reading back and trying to understand, why was the kid afraid of the tree before? Like, has it happened before? He was buried for a couple days, and then like, but why would you keep going out to that part of the woods? I don't know. I was a little lost there, but even still, still a solid book. So that's Incredible Hulk number 27. Next up, and this is the last from the pulls of this week, we have Star Wars The High Republic, the finale. So this book, I thought it was so-so. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 4. For me, it just wasn't quite a 4 because, I don't know, I was like, what earth-shattering thing am I getting here? And the only thing I can really say is you get the fate of like two heroes in particular, which are these two. So Trennis and Skier. So Trennis basically becomes like a Jedi master, and she ends up on the council. This is after fighting all the Nihil and basically the rebels, but in the High Republic era, it's turned on. It's completely flipped, right? So the Jedi are good, but they have the influence of the Empire. They are effectively the Empire, not in a negative way. They just control everything. Whereas the rebels are like trying to free themselves from the Jedi, and it's more like people are very superstitious of like the Force wielders. It's almost like a witch hunt type deal, where it's like, oh, we don't mess with those Force wielders, even though they are like in control of the galaxy. And so the Nihil are like trying to live free of all of that, but they're defeated and beaten. So everyone's going back to Coruscant to celebrate. And when they land on Coruscant, Trennis here is trying to figure out what she's going to do next. Yoda offers her a position on the council, and she's of course very thankful of it, but I think it's a few weeks, maybe months, pass by where they have this huge gathering, a huge party. We meet up from old characters from throughout our adventures and from some previous stories as well in the High Republic era. And then Trennis shows up at the very, very end when everyone's trying to get on their ships and go off and do their missions that they need to. But Trennis shows up in her regular, like, kind of, not Jedi robes, but almost like a citizen of Coruscant. And she's like, yeah, I'm no longer going to be part of the Jedi Council, and I'm just no longer going to be a Jedi. And I think she's just working, like, as part of the government or whatever for Coruscant. And so Skier here is, like, going to leave with Yoda, and just before he leaves, and when Trennis is about to head out, she turns around and she sees Skier come back, and basically he's going to be now an ambassador from the Jedi Council, I guess, to the Coruscant, and so that way they can be on the planet together. So these two are basically bowing out. Then you have Lorna here, who's kind of our Han Solo of this book, who's really, really evil. Turns to like maybe she has a little bit of a heart in her. She was adamant that she doesn't want to be included in like any of the record keeping to kind of moving forward, and it's ambiguous as to what exactly happens to her future from here. So we'll just kind of have to see. And that's it. I mean, that's the whole consequence of it. Absolutely not the book to jump into, because unless you read the other stuff, you're going to be like, what the hell is all this about? And now suddenly it's over, and it doesn't mean any stakes at all to these people have, changed their lives entirely. It's like, well, what does that matter to you, right? So it doesn't make sense to pick up this one. But with that, let's go into the artwork, because the artwork is pretty good here. I'd say standard as far as Marvel interior art is concerned, but more so for Star Wars, which is pretty good here. But, you don't have any fighting or anything like that. It's all just kind of a big old wrap-up here. But that doesn't mean that it's absent of, like, nice art, because this big old party takes place in, like, this really nice garden, which is pretty cool. So, like, here's the big scene where you have the full spread of everyone just hanging out in the garden and enjoying a little celebration for beating up the bad guys before they head out there and start to do it all over again. So here's Trennis, like, kind of in her normal Coruscant-looking robes or outfit rather than in her Jedi robes. And Skier's, like, kind of shocked. So she's heartbroken about it, but this is what she has to do for her. And so as they start to head off, she turns back, and Skier actually shows up and is like, yeah, I'm going to basically stay here, and we'll see where the adventure picks up from there. So it doesn't really have what's going to be next for the High Republic. I do like picking up the High Republic just because it's an era of Star Wars I'm not super familiar with. So I like reading more about it because it's just interesting to me. So anytime I see High Republic from Marvel, I usually grab it. I don't usually grab the stuff from Dark Horse, though. So if Dark Horse is going to start doing some stuff too, maybe I should look into picking some of that stuff up too. We'll have to see. So yeah, that's Star Wars The High Republic, the finale. I gave it a 3.5. Lee gave it a 4. And only a couple ratings, just only 36. That's actually kind of small, which is interesting. But alrighty, next up here we have Uncanny X-Men number 9. So this starts the backlog that we have. I gave this one a 4. Lee gave it a 3.7, and I was certainly between like a 4 and a 3.5, but I ended up going with a 4 here. So this book and X-Men, when we get to it later in the reviews, are the issue after the Grey Malkin prison and everything that's taken place there. So that's when a member from each side of the X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men were put into the prison. Both of them went in and broke them out. We found out Xavier is there, and he's going to remain at the prison, and basically both sides decided that they would go back, not to continue the conflict any further, so that there's not this big old, war that takes place now by escalating things any further. So with that, the Uncanny side goes back to Louisiana. Sorry, I just keep taking a sip of my coffee. My mouth is really dry. But yeah, they head back to Louisiana, and it is Rogue, it is Wolverine, it's Gambit, it's Jubilee, and it's Nightcrawler are the main X-Men, and then they have like 4 proteges. And now that they've gone into these missions without any training for these kids of any serious manner, they're like, we gotta just train these kids up, because clearly the fight is coming, and it's been coming, and we gotta do something about it to make sure that these kids are prepared adequately and that they can handle whatever comes to them. And so what they decide to do is each one of the X-Men takes on one of the kids as their own mentor protege. So one of them was about to leave, and Logan is assigned to him. He convinces him to stay, which is great. So then they decide, okay, you guys also need to be kids at the same time, so they send them all to the mall. So they can bond a little bit and then also, be kids. So they go to the mall, but while that's happening, as you can see from the cover here, you have these dogs. So there is like some sort of secret Sentinel-esque program that's going on where basically they're doing these mechanical dogs. And of course it's powered by AI, as everything is. But the AI kind of went rogue. So they tried to shut it down, but the dogs wouldn't shut down, and they're turning on by themselves. And like, well, we don't really know what to do with the dogs. So they just sent them to Louisiana, see what's going to happen. So when all the kids are at the mall, sure enough, the dogs show up, and now the kids have to fight again on their own without the help of some of the other X-Men to help and support. And so they're fighting, and then you have this one kid, he has a connection with both death and life. So he's fighting, and they're trying to support, but he gets caught out on his own, and the cliffhanger here is he's dead. And I was like, oh man, that seems like it's a big cliffhanger, but the thing is, multiple times it's already been hinted throughout Uncanny X-Men that kid has died and come back to life several times. So I'm like, okay, he's dead, but like, of anyone that would have died that would have been of consequence, that is the least one that matters out of all of them. Like, what are you doing? So I was like, that's kind of lame, but all right, he is dead. I'm sure he'll come back very quickly. So is what it is. But yeah, that's the book in a nutshell. Now remember, this is a backlog, so this book came out January 22nd, quite a while ago. But let me show you through some of the artwork here. The artwork, I'd say, is actually so-so. Maybe on some of the weaker side, I'd say, for Uncanny. But, not bad, but just weaker of everything. But yeah, for this, it's just more of like, yep, we got these kids, we got to figure it out and got to train them. Let's do this whole buddy thing and try to get them as good as we can. Plus we have these dogs that are attacking, and now they're just going to try to fight them off as best as they can. So yeah, that is the Uncanny X-Men number 9. Next up here, we're going to go to Spider-Man, specifically Miles Morales, number 21. So this is in Blood Hunt now, and I believe this is the first part for Blood Hunt, at least from the Miles Morales side. So this one came out June 2024. And previous issue was just a filler set up for Blood Hunt. This is the start of it. The vampires are starting to take over. We start off this issue with Miles and Dracula actually teaming up together, and they found Brielle. And Brielle is Blade's daughter. And they're trying to figure out what's all happening and stop the night. Now, at the very beginning of the book, you don't realize who is causing this, but towards the middle and the end, you do realize that it is Blade himself who's actually like the one causing this long night and all these vampires to come out. And Miles thinks like, oh, Ramir has something to do with this. So if you don't recall, earlier in this run, somewhere in the teens of these books, Blade showed up. they had to stop Ramir. Miles helped to stop him. And so they're like, oh, this has something to do with Ramir. Somehow got out in some way, some shape, or some form. So Miles is talking with Blade. It's like early in the timeline for the issue. And Miles is a little careless. Remember, he's had issues with his spidey senses. And Blade comes up behind him and bites him and turns him into a vampire. So now Miles is vampire, but also he's got his powers as well. So that's when he kind of links up with... this is all within this issue. That none of what I just said happened. The Blade stuff all happens, but he doesn't link up with anyone. As he's bitten by Blade's going on monologuing and stuff, and then Ramir shows up, and that's the cliffhanger here. So it ends right there with just bitten by Blade. Blade says like they're gonna take over, and Ramir then shows up, and that's the end there. So again, it's the beginning of Blood Hunt. All this already happened a year ago. I actually remember Blood Hunt really well. I want to say that was my very first full event of Marvel that I was a part of, and not like a long-standing one like the Ultimates, like a full universe, but of an event, because I didn't read all the Gang War stuff, and I wasn't like aware of what was happening. But Blood Hunt I was, where it was like there's some Avengers stuff, there's Spider-Man stuff, like it touches all the different books, and then now One World Under Doom is like the current event that I've been part of. So I do know like this story and how it all ends, and it's funny and interesting because I knew Miles was a vampire because that's featured in a couple of the other books, but I never knew how that happened, and now I just read it. So I don't know, it's kind of cool to like go back and it's like, oh, that's how it happened, because I just assumed it was a random vampire that got him. I didn't realize it was Blade, and if one of the books mentioned it, it didn't commit to memory for me. So that was actually a nice little surprise to see that in there. So again, I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 3.7. Let's go ahead and flip through some of the artwork here. It's classic Miles, which is good. If you are familiar with the show, you know I talk about Miles in particular being more action focused, which I do like. And here's the scene right here. Boom. Blade right into the side of Miles. Like, dang. And yeah, just then some of the fighting that ensues afterwards. And that's right, Hightail shows up to help out a little bit, but not to the fullest extent. But in the end, it is Ramir who ends up showing up and is summoned. And that is our big bad cliffhanger there. So yeah, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, number 21. I think we're 35, 36 at this point, so a lot of catching up until we're fully caught up there. And then our second to last book here is going to be X-Men number 10. Holy shit, I did not expect this book to be as awesome as it was. Oh my goodness gracious. This is a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. This is probably the best X-Men that I read since maybe the first one, but the first one mostly had to do with the cliffhanger. This book was, man, Scott in this one. Cyclops is like, okay, man. You know, not as much of a Boy Scout as you would have thought based on this book. So in this one here, just like Uncanny, like I mentioned, it's the end of the Grey Malkin prison, and the X-Men then show back up. So one agency out there, and it's literally called One, O.N.E, One. They are an Orcus-like, Sentinel type company or corporation. And they hear about everything that took place at Grey Malkin prison. So they're like, okay, we're going to send an attack onto the Alaska X-Men. And they go and attack. The X-Men haven't returned back from Grey Malkin prison. So it's just Magneto, who doesn't have his powers and is like getting weaker. And like a couple of the other stragglers there. And like, the hell are we going to do? We're not going to be able to defend. And right when they're about to like, all right, everyone to attack positions. It's like, no need. And then Scott and everyone shows back up. So they're there, and Scott's like, all right, relax. We'll just call and hail the leader. Let's meet in the bar area, have a beer, and talk this over. So he shows up. The leader of One shows up as well, and they start talking. And the leader of One has valid points. You guys attacked Grey Malkin prison. We're just responding. And they're like, okay, you can respond. That's fine. But understand, if you're going to respond, we're going to respond as well. And he's like, what are you talking about? And while they're in there in that bar, there's some other ragtag group of a bunch of mutants going out at like the speed of light, destroying a whole bunch of facilities. Like just a Sentinel factory destroyed, a mining place destroyed, like another facility destroyed, warehousing destroyed, like all within this conversation that Scott's having. And the guy with one is like, are you crazy? Now we're authorized to use whatever force that we want. We'll, kill you. We'll kill everyone here. We'll kill Xavier, whoever we have to, in order to stop this. And he's like, are you serious? You really want that? You know who all we have here? We have nothing but Omega level threats here. So sure, you're going to kill one of us, and that's fine. There's going to be another Omega level threat. And you think you can contain all of us? What if we just sent Juggernaut into space and then rocketed down into the White House? Is that going to be able to stop, or like anyone going to be able to stop him? Or we sent him even higher up to the moon and then shot him down into the planet. The whole planet would explode. So he's just like saying like, we can escalate this, brother, to wherever you need to go with this. But understand, it's not going to end with you guys bullying and pressuring us. Because if you want to take it, we're just going to take it one step further every single time. And who do you think is going to come out on top in the end? I was like, damn, when you put it that way, you got some valid points here, Scott. Like, so it's like, okay, you want to come after us, we'll just burn the whole place down with it. And I was like, like what an image, the way it was written. McKay was on when he was writing this one. My goodness gracious, it is so good. And I was like floored. And this is the first time for me where you see Cyclops is like not as a bitch, right? He is like actually, the dude means business here. And he's like so dead serious about it. The only other time was like, the most recent X-Men 97 or 98. What is it? I should know this. 97. Where they actually made him look like a badass in that show as well. But in this one, I was like, dude. And it's so fitting with the cover as well and everything. And that's basically the whole concept, is that conversation takes place for a majority of the time, and then the leader of one is like, fine, we'll back off. And then sure enough, Scott calls off his guys from destroying all the other facilities. But they did take and sustain a whole bunch of damage. But it's basically like, you want to F with us? I mean, we can tussle, man. We can do what we got to do. You want to fight? We'll fight. So excellent book here. I recommend finding it. If you can just pick up this book or just read it. Read what I'm talking about here. It is good. So I'll show off the artwork just so you can see it, but it's not about the artwork. It is all 100% about the writing. And this one, if I had to say story of the week, this is by far and away story of the week, just from the script. So this is the ragtag group, and they're going around just destroying stuff, and then Cyclops is just making it very clear who's actually in charge here, what is actually at stake. If you're talking humanity versus mutants, you might get some of us, you ain't gonna get all of us, and we know you humans, you're just gonna die. Like, if you don't have Earth, you need us to keep it, well, basically keep us from losing our cool. And he's like, oh, and he pulls out a gun on Scott. He's like, fine, kill me. But like, someone else is going to flip out then, is basically what's going to happen. Oh, and the other thing too, he says like, you don't think the Phoenix is going to come back and just destroy everything? If you're not familiar with the Phoenix, she's like this god-like entity out in the universe that literally can destroy planets at like a snap, right? And which is actually his wife, Jean Grey. And so she comes back and finds out that Scott's dead. You don't think that the Earth is going to be destroyed as well? So similar concept of like, point your guns at us, do whatever you want, threaten us, but we're taking you down with us if it really does come down to it, which is incredible. Very, very well done. So that's X-Men number 10. Again, I gave it a 4.5. Lee gave it a 4.4. And then last but not least, we are going to end with Local Man, which is the trade I've been working my way through. So at this point now, I am on issue number 3. So that's what you see here on the screen, which is the cover. But, the actual book, of course, I have is just the trade itself. I gave it a 4. Lee gave this particular issue a 4.2. This came way back in 2023. So we just have to pick up the trades at this point. This is, no, I was already into the hobby at this point because I think I started in December of 22. I think that's on track. But anyways, for this book, to catch you up, we have Crossjack. He's part of this group. He was kicked out. The locals, right? Local Man. So it's like a local crime fighting group where he's from. a small town in Wisconsin. So he ends up back there, and he's kind of the laughing stock of the town because, man, you were kicked out of this group. You're supposed to be all this, high and mighty person, but you're not anymore. When he comes back, his hometown villain also comes back as well, and the villain was part of like a villain group, Hodag, but unfortunately he was killed when he was in prison, and so now local man is trying to figure out who did it, and who else is coming to town but another teammate of Hodag is in town for like a book signing or something, so he goes to investigate that. So he meets up with her, and her name, I should have it, is Frightside. And so Frightside, she wrote a whole bunch of books from her experience of being part of the group and everything. And she's like, I'm the only one in this group that actually liked him. That's why I came back to pay my respects and intentionally made sure that my book tour would actually, hit this town in particular because I wanted to pay my respects for what happened to Hodag. And her whole ability is like she has like a demon within her, and so like she just lets this demon out, and then it just creates like a whole bunch of chaos and madness. And so she wrote this book on like how to tame the demon within you, which is fair enough. And her and Crossjack, when they meet and she explains that it wasn't her, he believes her and leaves. But then someone comes into her hotel room and attacks her, and this is of course to us leads to believe this is probably the same one that killed Hodag as well, and to destroy him. While that happens to take place, Crossjack's none the wiser. He's heading on the way home. His father, he's like calling out to him, but he has like a leaf blower, doesn't hear him, and he starts walking forward, nearly gets hit by a car. Crossjack goes to save him. So in this universe, Crossjack, because he's kicked out of the group, he's not allowed to do any hero stuff whatsoever, and there's things like recording him. So this is his second offense. So he gets reported back to his original group of heroes, and the head of it, which is Camo Crusader, is all ticked off, and he's like about to raise all hell. But the kicker is we find out that Crossjack was kicked out for, and what we find out is it was cheating with Camo Commander's wife, Neon, who's also part of the group. But in this issue, we find out that it was Neon who actually made the first move on to Crossjack. So they were flirting on something, the world was about to end, they were saving the world, and Neon grabs Crossjack and kisses him, which caused it. I don't know if it was like specifically that instance or if things escalated from there, but you find out that she caused it. So now Camo Crusader is coming back all pissed off, and I'm sure he's under the impression that it was like Crossjack the whole time, and that's why he got all kicked out. So the start of issue number 4, like you can tell, it's just gonna be fireworks between Camo Crusader just being pissed off of like, you broke the rules, you slept with my wife, like F you. Like, where's this all gonna go, right? So it's things are heating up and escalating for sure. I'm enjoying the hell out of this book. It's been 4s across the board, and anywhere between 4 and 4.5, I'd say for the most part. It's a good mix of humor, really clever storytelling, and then just setting up these new original characters and an interesting idea where there's like these groups of superheroes that you almost like try out for, like almost like it's a pro team, if you will, which is kind of cool. So, and a little Gooner in there as well. I mean, you got some of these outfits that are pretty nuts as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the artwork here. So let's see. Oh, that's chapter 2. Let's get you to chapter 3. Boom. So that matches what you saw up on the screen before. So this is Crossjack talking with basically Frightside here, trying to get an understanding as to why exactly she's here when she explains herself. This is when Crossjack's calling out to his father, and he has to save him from being hit by a car. And then here is where she is then attacked. But when she's attacked, of course, then like this kind of demon thing like seems like it may come out as well. Oh, and then this is also Crossjack with his high school crush. There's that whole B plot that's going on as well. And then at the very end, you have Commander Crusader, finding out yet again that Crossjack has been screwing around, so they're going to come to the town. And then I think the final piece here is, where they find Frightside dead. But then, that inner demon, I'm sure that's going to come into play as well. And so the last part of each one of these books has a little comic book as well, and this is basically the era of when Crossjack was part of the group. So this is Neon, the world is ending, and Neon is basically like, oh, the world is ending, what does it matter? And she's the one that then kisses Crossjack here, which then leads us to believe like, oh, this is the reason. See, Erica, you're married, like what are you doing? But I guess she doesn't care, so causing issues and trauma and chaos for Crossjack. It's like, why? But yeah, here we are. So that is Local Man issue number 3. I gave it a 4. Lee gave it a 4.2. And that's it. Those are the books. Those are all 10, folks. Let's go ahead and recap it from the top here so you can see. And for the audio listeners, so we had Ultimate Spider-Man number 19, where we had the symbiote suit finally in action. Exciting stuff there, and Mole Man reporting back the news to the whole lot. Then Spider-Man versus the Sinister 16. Full course meal between the heroes and villains. Try to work it out, but of course it does not work out. The Ultimates number 14, introduced to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, along with Emma Frost. Medieval Spawn number 4, the conclusion here to the story of everything that happened with the Squire Richard. Incredible Hulk number 27, kind of a one-shot here, trying to determine, is Hulk a monster or not. Star Wars, The High Republic, the finale, is truly that and the fate of all these characters. The Uncanny X-Men number 9, just more character development for all these kids as they face off against these K9 Sentinels. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 21, where Miles turns into a vampire. X-Men number 10, where Cyclops says, I will burn the world down with us if I need to. And then Local Man number 3, where Crossjack confronts Frightside to figure out who exactly killed Hodag. So that's it. Those are the reviews. With that, let us then go ahead and jump into the previews for next week. The polls for next week. If you couldn't tell, I'm getting tired. For this week, we have 9, which is good. I can do 9. I can live with 9. That's totally, completely fine. So for the week's polls, we have Absolute Green Lantern, number 5. Absolute Superman, number 10. The Bitterroot, The Next Movement, number 5. Now, I'm actually not sure if that's going to show up or not. I can't remember if I dropped that, but we'll have to see. Null Hunter, number 10. One World Under Doom, number 6, which is a pretty awesome cover. Look at this cover here. Like, that is dope. It's Mr. Fantastic, his face being like pulled apart. Pretty nuts. All right, let's flip back to the polls. And then we have Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma, number 5. Ultimate Wolverine, number 8. Uncanny X-Men, number 19. I don't think that'll actually be in the poll list. We'll have to see. And then World Tree, number 16. So it's those 8 books. It might actually be 7 because I don't think I got the last Uncanny, so I don't think I'll be getting this one as well. But either which way, I will keep you guys updated. So that is it. That's it for the show. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so very much. As always, you can follow me on all the socials that are in the description. Obviously, the show's available on YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Feel free to send an email if you have any questions, concerns, comments, things you want to see about the show, things you love about the show, things you hate about the show. Let me know how I can get better. Any feedback is much appreciated as I continue to try to grow this thing one issue at a time. So for next week, we'll do an Omega for sure. It'll just be one, though, because I got a whole bunch of wrestling stuff. It's SummerSlam tomorrow. As I'm recording this Friday, I'll get it posted, obviously, Saturday. So we got 2 reviews coming up, plus regularly scheduled stuff for wrestling. So it's just going to be one Omega, which is totally fine. And then back to our kind of regular stuff, and then another Saturday. So I'll go ahead and close it out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one.
Go. This has been a DMW production. Thanks for stopping by.